Welcome back to another market update where I share with you all of the stats and the important factors that are happening in the Myrtle Beach or Grand Strand real estate market. And as always, I want to start with the residential market. June was overall a pretty good month in terms of transactions. I'm going to share with you some details on both the residential and the condo market in this video. So always make sure to come back each month and look for the latest update. Okay, let's jump in and take a look at June. So in June, and this is again, for those of you, maybe this is the first time that you've seen one of these, the numbers that I will go through are always going to be resales. I don't include any new construction. New construction can really skew the numbers, especially in the residential markets. This is always going to be resale statistics, no new construction included in here. So new listings in June were down from May. And it looks like, barring anything crazy that happens in the second half of the year, that March is probably going to be our peak month for new residential listings, which isn't completely, that's fairly normal. We get that seasonal bump in new listings. So March looks to be the peak. May was up a little bit, but not as high as March. And then June has come down too. So that's a good thing in this market. We're not oversaturated with residential homes. And it feels like now we probably hit that peak mid-spring. They haven't come down a ton. There's still new listings coming on every month, but it feels like it's flattened out. We'll have to see in July and August. Now, new pendings, the pending activity for the last couple of months has really just mirrored the new active activity. So when we had roughly 300 or 400 new homes come on the market, that's about where the pending activity has been. March is also looks like it's going to be the peak for the year in terms of new pendings. Now, that's kind of a challenge because in the past, June and July usually were the peak months for contracts that were closing. And it feels like it may have done that early this year in March. Now, again, we've got a couple months of the summer left, so we'll watch that closely. But if March was the peak, that will be different than what we traditionally see here along the Grand Strand. So there was a small blip in May. So the new pendings bumped up a little bit in May, which gave us a nice month of closings in June. So we actually saw a nice uptick in the closings this past month in June. And really from March to June, we saw a little bit of a rise from where we were same time last year. So residential homes, seeing some bright spots in there. And again, I think that March is probably going to end up being the peak, not only for new listings, but new pendings. And days on the market is really, it's flattened out so far. We're at about 75 to 80 days. And at the beginning of the year, it was kind of on that upward trend, something that we usually see because coming through the holidays in the first part of the year slows down just a little bit. So the days on market go up, but we're now back in that 75 to 80 days, which isn't terrible, but it's much different than we were used to in 21 and 22 in the first quarter of 2023. So, but still a fairly normal market, what I would consider normal, 75 to 80 days. That means from the time they went on the market until the time that they were closed out. About 80 days, you figure 30 days of that on average is the time that it's in escrow in the closing period. So most homeowners are experiencing around 60 days and they're getting offers or they're getting acceptable offers that go under contract. Okay, so let's hop over and take a look at the condos. Condos, new listings for the first half of the year. Again, we're back to they peaked out in March, and that I think is probably going to change a little bit coming into August and September. And I'll share with you the reasons why here in just a second. But I would anticipate that those March numbers, that's where you can think about the people that are coming out of the winter. Maybe they say, okay, I'm not going to keep my short-term rental investment. I'm not going to keep my oceanfront condo. You see a lot of new inventory come on the market. You also see a lot of new inventory come on the market when people finish a rental season and then decide, okay, I'm not going to keep the unit now for the off season. I'm going to sell it so I don't carry all the costs over the winter and let the new buyer take on those costs. So I would anticipate we'll see another bump up in August. Whether or not it competes with where the numbers were for new listing in March is yet to be seen, but we'll watch that real closely. And I would anticipate that that jump up in new listing activity over the next 60 to 90 days. Now, new pendings, they've been hovering around 380 to around 400 or new pendings over the last 60 to 90 days. And that's right in line with the new listings that are coming on board. So every month we're listing 380 to 400 new condos, and we're selling 380 to 400 new condos. The reason that's a challenge is it's great because we're absorbing some of that inventory, but we're not making any real headway. We're just selling through the amount that's coming on the market. So all the new inventory, or that quantity of inventory is being sold through, which is good, but we're not really making up any ground, which still takes us to right now our current inventory. When you look at the amount of oceanfront or what I would call short-term rental resort type properties, we're hovering between 10 and 11% of what's on the MLS is under contract. So there's just a significant amount of inventory of that type of property. And again, going into August and September, we usually see a normal bump up, like I've said in the past, in these past videos. I would anticipate we'll see even a little bit more as the season winds down, the rental season winds down. Closings, closed sales are mirroring the new listings as well. Of course, if the pendings are kind of mirroring the new listings, then 30 days later, those pendings become closings. And so we're seeing kind of that same trend line. The good news is we're not seeing a significant drop off in sales, and we're up slightly. We're up slightly over last year's sales. So that's a good thing, not prices, but the amount of transactions. So, you know, when you hear those numbers, 10 to 11% of the units that are along the oceanfront are under contract, that is a low percentage, very low, but there are still properties that are selling. What's it come down to? What's the difference? Well, the difference comes down to two things. One, it has to be priced correctly based off of what the comparables in the rest of the market is dictating. And these units really have to be marketed aggressively. You can tell if only 10% are on the market, just putting it on the MLS is not effective right now. You've got to have a little bit more aggressive marketing campaign to be able to get in front of that right group of buyers. Now on condos, the days on market, we're actually bumping back up. We're kind of trending back up in the days on market. It's understandable when you've got a small percentage that are under contract. Those are taking longer to sell. So we're right now sitting at 93 days on market. We peaked out, not surprisingly, the days on market was the highest in January because of the kind of that seasonal slowdown around the holidays. We were at 105 days on market. So hopefully we can just, you know, stay in that 90 day mark for the days on market, but we'll keep an eye on that over the next couple of months as well. Now, two things I want you to be aware of that could have some impact on you know, just overall market, both residential and condo, that I want to make you aware of. And I'll be watching, you know, when I watch these numbers every month, it's easier to see small changes that turn into bigger trends over time. So I'll be sure to let you know of this. But two things I want you to be aware of. One is the bill that was just passed, sometimes referred to as the big beautiful bill, within the House and within the Senate, that passed recently. One of the provisions within that bill in the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017 was the extension of the bonus depreciation. Now, if you don't know what that is, you can Google it. But it's basically an incentive when you're buying investment properties that can have a fairly large tax implication, to mitigate your taxes when you're buying investment properties. So that could be a big stimulus for people that are maybe have been on the sidelines at looking at buying investments, whether they're residential or condos, because that bonus depreciation, that process allows people to take a fairly significant or qualify for a fairly significant tax break in the first year of owning a property. So if you're not aware of that, just Google that. It'll give you some insight on what the process is. And I do feel like that could have some incentive for people that have been on the sidelines in the past to jump back in the game if they are looking for investment properties. If you have any questions on that and kind of how it works, feel free to reach out to me, especially if you've bought anything as an investment in 2025 so far. The way that I understand it is it's going to be retroactive to properties purchased in 2025. So it could be a good tool for you. Feel free to reach out to me anytime. I've got experience with that and can share with you what I know on that. The other thing to keep in mind is the movement in the condo prices. So in a lot of buildings right now, where you've got a lot of inventory, they've got a lot of units very similar, stacked up in terms of properties for sale. As the time on the market has continued, there's sellers that for whatever reason, maybe they're looking at a better opportunity in another market, in another building, or they just want to get their cash out because the expenses are too high. When we start seeing transactions take place in markets where inventory is building, when those transactions take place, in a lot of cases, they're lower than the last transaction. And when that happens, then you have a move where the rest of the active inventory that's been sitting there without offers or without the ability to generate offers, they look and say, okay, that's the new market value. Those sales tend to set the new market value. Then you see a rush of, now that everybody knows what the new market value is, you see the prices go to that new market value. I would anticipate as we go into the third and fourth quarter, we're going to see that in more buildings. There's a couple of reasons. Right now, you have the most amount of income along our Grand Strand for investment properties or short-term rentals happens between May and August. Once that May to August timeframe is finished, then a lot of that income has already gone to the current owner. And so if they're selling, then they can be a little bit more flexible in the price that they can accept for their sale because they've collected a lot of the income. And so they're looking and say, well, if I collected the income, I can be a little bit more aggressive in what I'm willing to take. And that sometimes creates a lower comparable. This happens all the time, regardless of what's happening with inventory in that fall season, because the owners a lot of times have collected the income and the new buyer isn't getting the income. So there's that give and take. All right. So I want you to just kind of keep an eye out for, if you have questions on anything with bonus depreciation or some of the strategies that people are using. Maybe you're looking at potentially buying a unit this year. Or if you're thinking, I'm not sure that I want to own the unit that I have, these are two really good things to kind of be in the know on, and feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions on it. I can get you the details, and we will make sure to keep an eye on all the metrics that are really affecting the values and affecting the overall market. So as always, thank you for allowing me to be your trusted real estate resource. And I look forward to giving you another update here in the next month. And I hope you're doing great. Talk to you soon.